Hi everyone, thank you for joining the webinar today. I'm just going to give it a quick minute to give people a chance to join before starting the webinar. Hi everyone, it's 12:02, so I will start the webinar now. So thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Sahil, I'm the Key Partnerships Manager at Big Give, and we have Bethany, our Marketing Comms Manager, on the call. We have Anna from the Figurative Philanthropy for Arts and Culture, formerly called New Philanthropy for Arts and Culture. And we were also kindly joined by Suzanne from Sunderland Culture, who participated in the First Arts for Impact campaign last year to share um, their insights as well, which we're really grateful for. So just before we get started, just want to do a bit of housekeeping. So you'll see your chat box on the side of your screen. So if you want to introduce yourself, share any ideas in there, please put anything in there and make sure the to setting is set to everyone so everyone can um, see what you're saying. If you have any tech issues, please post them in there as well. If you have any questions for the Q&A portion of the webinar, please put them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom panel and we will get to them. There is a transcription service available for this webinar. So it should be a button at the bottom of your Zoom panel to turn on if you do need that. And we are also recording the webinar. So we will be posting it on our YouTube channel once, probably on Monday or later today. And if you have any questions after the webinar has ended, please contact us directly at hello@biggive.org and we'll be happy to help. So just want to go quickly over some getting campaign ready slides just to remind charities where they can access certain bits of information and some key rules of the campaign. So we do have the Trello board available now. So that is in your campaign dashboard. Please do use that. We are putting all of the assets and messaging onto that Trello board. So if you need any of those, please do refer to that board and make the best use of it. And a reminder, Canva, we use Canva Pro to create our assets. So Canva Pro is free for non-profits. If you have not already used it before, it's well worth investigating. We also have case studies available on our website. These are from our Christmas challenge campaign, but a lot of the lessons and tips and hints in those case studies can be used for your Arts for Impact campaign. So they're well worth reading and maybe trying to pick out some ideas that you can use for your own campaign. And we have some peer-to-peer learning as well. So we do have a Facebook group that you can all join, and that's to allow charities to talk to each other in another forum, share ideas, to ask each other questions as well. So it's a great way that charities support each other, and again, another free resource that you can access and make the best use of to get ready for your campaign. And we just want to remind you of the campaign rules, just to make sure that you know how they work. So you must accept your offer to participate in the campaign. We have sent the offers last week, so please do make sure you have accepted them. All donations need to be made via your Big Give campaign page in order to be matched. We cannot match donations made on other websites or offline. So that is really important to remember and where to direct donors to. The donate button will appear on your unique campaign page at midday on the 18th of March, and it will disappear at midday on the 25th of March. So you'll see you should have access to your campaign page. If you don't have access to your campaign page, it's probably because you need to upload your bank and trustee details to access it. You can edit all of the media assets on your campaign page if you want, and you can do that at any time yourself via your campaign dashboard. And it's not an all or nothing campaign. If you don't hit your donation target, any donations you do receive will still be matched. Just a reminder of the payment options, debit and credit card, Google and Apple Pay. And for donations of £500 or more, donors can also choose to use a Bax donation system if they want to, or they can still use a card to make their donation. Yeah, we can't match donations offline, CAF, etc. So I will just hand over, sorry, to Anna now, and she will introduce Suzanne as well.
Hello everybody, nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming and for participating in this campaign. So this morning's session is all about creating a case for support, and I thought the best way to do that would be to have a conversation in front of all of you with the brilliant Sunderland Culture, who was an absolutely stellar standout success last time around. So we'll do that, and then when we finished having our little conversation, if you've got questions for either of us, then as Sahil says, you can put them in the chat. And I've got a couple of slides just about making your case for support, which if any of you were here on Wednesday for that seminar, you'll have seen before, but for those of you who weren't, might be useful. So I'll start by, I promised Suzanne I'd ask her very easy questions. Suzanne, would you like, I mean, it's absolutely outrageous to think that all of our guests here don't know about Sunderland Culture, but for those who don't, would you mind telling us a little bit about your organisation? We're presuming you're in Sunderland, but what you do and what your activities are, just to get started, and introduce yourself, of course.
Hi Anna, thanks. Hello everyone. I'm Suzanne Davis. I'm Head of Development for Sunderland Culture. We're a place-based partnership, and we were founded by Sunderland City Council, the University of Sunderland, and the Sunderland Mac Trust, which is a charity. And our partners came together to maximise the impact of culture for communities here in the city. We deliver the programme in 4 cultural venues in National Glass Centre, where I am now, Northern Gallery for Contemporary Art, Sunderland Museum, Winter Gardens, and Arts Centre Washington. And we also deliver programmes and projects with communities across the city, and that includes artist development, specific projects for to increase opportunities for children and young people impacted by poverty, and also sort of large-scale events. So we've got quite a broad ranging programme. We're a registered charity, and we're a national portfolio organisation. I started here sort of 5 years ago. We've got a strong track record in public funding in trusts and foundations, but we didn't bring a track record in individual giving as much as we would have liked.
So I was going to ask you that. So is it fair to say that before you did the big give last year, you hadn't really raised that much money from individuals in the past? It was, as you say, your MPO funding, funding from council and trusts and foundations. Is that sort of a fair characterisation?
It's sort of based on our, I guess, a strategic approach from my capacity to leveraging income and cultural investment into the city. We've focused on large-scale funding, along with strengthening our in-venue giving and around ticket top-ups and things. So very much visitor-based giving plus the large scale. We haven't quite had the capacity around investing in the development of relationships around corporate and individuals.
It's not a criticism in any way.
No, it's
a fact. And I think that there'll probably be lots of people on this call who will have had the same experience. If they run a venue, they'll have sold a ticket for people to come in, and they'll have taken advantage of the top-up and the gift aid. And they may have had some one-off donations. Some arts organisations, particularly venue-based, have those, tap here to make a donation, card machines as you leave. But other than that, there's not the capacity internally to generate internal individual support. And that's really what the Big Give Philanthropy for Arts and Culture partnership is all about, really. It's to support organisations to dip a toe into this area, or to expand and strengthen if they've done it before. So I remember when you and I first met, you were debating, because of these issues around capacity and historical relationships, you were debating whether or not to do the campaign. I remember this conversation.
Yeah.
So my question was, well, do you have any data? Is there anyone on your mailing list? And that's when we started talking about the visitors. So do you like to explain what happened next? How did you go from having a list of visitors to running a successful fundraising campaign?
We had a good conversation with our board. I'd mapped out sort of what our approach could be for the different levels that we could apply for, and what the potential number of gifts would be required to translate to the amount. And it went to our board as a discussion about whether we should go for 2, 5 or 10. We decided to go for 10 because we got commitment at that board meeting for that was where they felt they wanted to pitch the ambition.
That's right. Am I allowed to ask you, had your board given you money before? And did some of them give money through the campaign?
Several of them they'd probably not been overtly asked prior to this. Several of them had previously given. More of them gave through the campaign.
That's
and enabled sort of generous support too through the campaign. So that there was a shift in sort of board level giving and board level advocacy.
That's really interesting to me, and hopefully of interest to people on the call, because I'm asked as a consultant all the time, is it okay to ask your board for gifts? Is it normal? Is it normal not to? But what you've just said is that through using a matching campaign, it's possible to encourage board level support in a way that's really very beneficial to the organisation. And then tell us about, how did you set out the case for support? How would you set out the case for support for what you do? I mean, obviously, you've just described the 4 venues and the programme of work, but how did you go about turning that into a campaign?
So we'd thought about how did we take the information that was on the Big Give website, because from our application, how did we take that so it was more appropriate for an advocacy comms or for a public facing in comms? And we pulled out some really clear strap lines. Whilst we have 4 venues, we'd anchored our campaign around helping more children enjoy creativity and culture, and basically to enable us to deliver more free and low-cost creative opportunities across our venues. So it was something that we'd structured our campaign so it ran across, it was applicable to each of our 4 venues. And I think the challenge for us is, because we're a slightly complex organisation, our audiences associate themselves with National Glass Centre or the museum or the Arts Centre. They don't think about Sunderland Culture. We're the kind of background brand as such. So to have that ask from Sunderland Culture, it was about how do we bring this all together. So we thought very hard about how do we present us as the front-facing charity in the venues that we program and give to. So we spent a lot of time working through our messaging, but very much anchoring around give to Sunderland Culture, and the Big Give will double your donation. So we used all of the language through the campaign that was sort of it threaded through all of our leaflets, our e-campaigns, our messaging to with stakeholders. So we use the same language so we mirrored the campaign.
That's brilliant. Actually, anyone who was at the seminar on Wednesday, I was droning on about the fact that it's really important to make your messaging consistent across all your different platforms. So I'm really delighted to hear you say the same thing. That's really good. And also, I think what's interesting is this often happens with charities, that the name of the charity is not the same as the name that the public associate with you. So a campaign like this does give you the opportunity to create more brand awareness and create more understanding of what you, the charity, are doing. And you've just described that very eloquently. So thank you very much. Now, presumably, so we've gone through the process. You decided with the board to apply for 10,000. you produced a case for support based on the young people. You've got some strap lines. You're going on about the double your money. What was the sort of time frame? Because the Arts for Impact campaign week runs for a fixed week in March. And just by the way, when we set this up, I guess it was nearly 2 years ago now, we did have a whole debate as to whether the campaign should run for more than a week. Because I thought, how cool to have a match funding campaign running for weeks and weeks. And the Big Give advised, and they were completely right, that actually you need the week because you need the deadline of you must make your donation by 12 o'clock on Tuesday morning, 12 o'clock midday on Tuesday. Otherwise, you don't get matched. So, but even before that week, how far ahead would you say you started emailing people, contacting people? Do you remember?
So I think I can't quite remember. So, it would have been February because I was away in January. And when I came back, sort of start of February, I worked with our marketing and comms officer and our head of marketing to look at how did we split it between a stakeholder advocacy and marketing. And how were we going to reach and enable those? And we'd identified a whole series of different constituency groups that we were going to approach and take the different times. So we mapped out, we identified all our different segments. We then identified how we were going to contact them and thought through what assets we were going to need to do that and where those assets could be replicated. So we weren't creating a whole bank. And we also thought about where we were going to, how we were going to activate through in the run up to the campaign and during the campaign. So we spent probably about now what I should be doing now. Sort of really thinking through what is that plan? How are we going to bring it to life? So I think the sort of thinking through. And in terms of like stakeholder advocacy, we asked our chair, asked our board and our trading company directors for them to commit to donate and to ask two other friends. And so we wrote, there was an email that was a very specific ask, and then I provided them with, each board member had a kind of a standard email that they could then issue and top and tailor for them. We reached out to our former trustees too. We had the opportunity of having an exhibition at 2 Temple Place in London where we had some work on display, and it was during the Big Give week. So we decided to utilise to hold a drinks reception in London and activate some London networks, which is something we've never done. And our chair led on that, reaching out to her network as well. We did messages to staff and senior staff and it was on meeting agendas. We sort of worked through those. We identified a list of suppliers who provide a range of different corporate or services for us, and that who we would make an ask to. We also made approaches to we identified which city partner groups we could ask, or what meetings were coming up that we could then, and there's a Sunderland business group that meets monthly. How could we get on the agenda for a 5-minute slot, make a pitch, and then they'd follow up with their email marketing out during the week. So it was like, where were these moments? Where were these opportunities? So we sort of built out a timeline from that. And that was about how do we create stakeholder engagement and advocacy.
I love that. That's really detailed, clearly thought through plan, and obviously it's very effective. And then there were all the people who were what I call hanging out on your mailing list.
Yeah.
So that was presumably a slightly separate ask, because those were the people who'd come to the Glass Museum and had topped up their ticket price.
Yeah, so we then had our marketing approach, which was to our audiences who were either but also our regular venue users, because we've got like various groups that meet at different and sort of user groups, people that take part in activities, and it's like they are our users. So we were like, how do we reach those? So with that, we had we made direct asks or sort of connection from the leaders of those activities to those groups if they were regular. But in terms of a marketing approach to our database, so we use Spectrix for our CRM system, which meant we could segment across people that we knew had made either a donation or a top-up donation on a ticket purchase, and those that we had consent to approach. We did separate communications to both of those groups. So we had the you've given previously to us and you're on our mailing list. So they were ever so slightly targeted, and we also used our social media channels, LinkedIn, as well as those, and we had in-venue collateral with QR codes so that directed people to the Big Give website.
So you've just described an enormous amount of work, which might possibly be slightly scary to someone who's got an organisation that doesn't have the privilege of having a head of development and a head of marketing. So of all the things you've described, which ones would you say were the most effective? Was it the emails to your existing customers, or was it the peer-to-peer asks, or was it the user groups, or was it the business meetings? Is there a sense of which you found to be the most effective? And if the answer is they were all effective, that's fine too.
I think it was the email campaigns that was the most effective. I don't think we printed up a lot of leaflets and we had some posters. I don't think they really converted in venue, maybe a little bit.
That's a very good point. I mean, I don't know, if someone asks me for money by email and you can click through Apple Pay and you're done, that's enormously easier than being in the museum, spotting a poster with a QR code and going, isn't it? So part of this is making the giving process as easy as possible.
Yeah. And we also made a film. We used some content, and we got a little film made. I don't think that was a driver. So I think the targeted advocacy, the reaching into using other people's networks, like a business partnership, to reach people that were in the city that know and love the venues, but haven't been asked. I think that was really key. Direct advocacy through our partner and trustee networks and the email campaigns. So we'll be paring it back a little this year.
Well, the other thing that I would just observe based on what you've just said is that, disappointingly, the things that cost you money, so posters, leaflets, flyers, making a film, were not as effective as the things which are essentially free. The email campaign and the peer-to-peer ask and the advocacy. And I think that's a really useful lesson for all of us, because we all think that spending money increases return. It doesn't always work like that. What you've said, which I think is really effective, is that if you've got clear communication and your case for support is very directly made to the individuals concerned, that is the most effective way of getting a return.
Yeah, I don't think we needed to spend some of the money that I think, I don't think we needed some of the print that we needed, but we'd never done this before. Exactly. And we've tried, we've learnt, and there's something about utilising the sort of assets that are in hand, and we used the marketing assets that came from the Big Give. We have a graphic designer that we work with, and he he used the Canva assets, and we created our own. We created a leaflet that then had the same design that was then on our Big Give page. We put a header on the website. So there was a whole campaign coherency through our dot mailers that went out with what was on the Big Give site, which was what was on our leaflets, and what you'd have seen if you'd have followed any of our social channels too. And I think almost if the utilising the Canva sort of assets and for your own use was really helpful for us.
That's excellent. And then I suppose if you think back on the campaign as a whole, I mean, you ended up raising nearly 30,000, didn't you? It was 28,000, something like that. Over 200 donors. And I remember you telling me at the time how delighted you were with that. Is there anything that surprised you particularly? I mean, that presumably was slightly more than you were expecting, given that you set out to raise 10 plus matching. So that's first surprise. But did you get any feedback from donors about how they were happy to... Anything that surprised you in a positive way that came from the campaign?
I think because it garnered quite a bit of profile in the city, or it gained some attention. I mean, we got some really surprising final donations, because we got a 5,000 pound donation on the last day from Fulwell 73 and Sunderland Football Club, and we'd actually reached our match at that point, but it was just such an incredible, and they were really proud to make this, and for them they issued a press release to say that they were thrilled to support it. They've made that known. So it gained momentum, and we got some last minute donations that came in.
I'm very keen on football clubs supporting arts and culture. That sounds excellent. They've got much more money than we have. And actually, as we in our regional work have travelled around the country, there are quite a few football clubs which have got their own foundations and which support grassroots arts and culture alongside supporting grassroots sport. Yeah. So the fact that you've been able to connect into them, that sounds really excellent.
Yeah.
Your follow-up, what's happened after the campaign? Obviously, they'll have all got the automated thank you from the Big Give, and hopefully they're sitting there ready to support you again.
So since then, we actively decided not to go for the Christmas challenge. We thought about it, but decided not to. So that's what's happened. Everyone got a nice thank you email from our chief executive. We then had a couple of previews where we've really made some targeted invitations that it's like, as a supporter, we'd love it if you could join us at these events and things, but so it's not been over the top. We acknowledged them in our annual review. Everyone will have had a copy of that via email and things, and we did a thank you at Christmas too.
That's lovely. You can't say thank you too many times, I think.
Yeah.
That's really good, because what you really want to do is make sure that your donors know that you care about them, that you're grateful to them, that occasionally they get something special like an invitation to a party, but you're not pestering them with asks all the time. And I think to your point about the Christmas challenge, I think some of the larger arts organisations who've got huge CRM systems and long benches of donors, then they can subdivide them between different campaigns. But I think if you are a small organisation who doesn't have the capacity to do that, one match funding campaign is quite enough, and there'll be other things that you want to do along the way as well. The other thing, I heard this horror story, I mentioned this on Wednesday, so apologise if you're getting it again. I had an absolute horror story the other day of a board member who'd given money to an arts organisation over a number of years and left the board, evidently under something of a cloud, and tried to ask for their money back. And that told me that donor had not been well looked after as a as a donor to the company, it's really important to make them feel engaged, happy, and that you've got their interests in your front and centre. Are there any things that you would do differently? We've just talked about how you're not going to spend so much money on things like films. But aside from that, it sounds like you ran an excellent campaign. You were very happy with it. So hopefully what we can do is replicate it, but maybe spend a little bit less money on it.
I mean, I think we've got a smaller campaign this year that we're doing. We've focused it. We've got a different focus this year as well. And I think I'm keen to sort of sort of look back at how do we sort of connect some of those corporate kind of connections that supported us, and maybe see if we can uplift some of those into supporting us at a slightly higher level.
That's excellent, because new philanthropy is either new people or it's an existing supporter giving you more. In either way, that's more philanthropic impact than you otherwise had.
Yeah. I mean, we saw a higher value of donations from completely new supporters or contacts. But we saw a higher proportion of donations from our existing supporters and contacts. So there's something about the balance between how do we utilize our networks, because we might get some bigger gifts, but actually how do we involve people who are connected with us as visitors or audiences, who might donate £5, but actually to have that breadth and that building that community of donors for Sunderland culture is really important. So I think it's an opportunity to take both, to grow people's ability to give and propensity to give, but also bring it in more at a lower level.
I think you've articulated it very well in 2 sentences, the dilemma facing all heads of development. What is the right relationship for each individual? How do you get them to give more? How do you take them up your giving ladder, and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Bethany, I wonder if you'd like to come back in and talk to us a bit more about the marketing assets, because Suzanne described how the Trello assets were used, which obviously we're delighted about, what with you having gone to all the trouble to make them, so that's marvellous. But are you happy just to summarise a little bit about what there is available for people to use to make their case for support? And then maybe that'll be 5 or so minutes, and then we'll take a couple of questions from the group, if that's okay. Does that sound right? Okay.
Yeah, sure, happy to. So yeah, as Sahil mentioned kindly earlier, we do have a Trello board that's available for you to access now. So in the Trello board, we have a link to some key messages for the campaign. So this is particularly useful in guiding you in terms of your communications, and linking back to the wide Arts for Impact campaign. So if you are doing kind of email comms, for example, this is a good opportunity just to link in some of the key messages, like double your donation, double your difference, as part of those email comms that you're doing. We also have a link to all of the webinars that we're hosting now in there, so you'll be able to access all of the YouTube recordings of that if you do want to look back at these webinars or share them amongst your colleagues or team members. As Suzanne kindly mentioned as well, we do have a range of social media assets that we put into the Trello board. These are editable via Canva, so you can edit the colors if you'd like to make it a bit more in line with your own branding. But you could also literally just download the assets as they are and use them. This is particularly good as well if you are a small organization, if you'd only have, one fundraiser doing all of the marketing in your team, and you just simply don't have enough time to do all of those assets by yourself. This is a really just good opportunity to utilize what we do have, put your logo in and call it a day, essentially. So yes, they're a really good starting point. I'd highly encourage you all just to have a look at those if you can. And yeah, you can get started with scheduling those. We're starting all of our marketing prep from now, essentially. But if you can schedule all of your social media comms in advance, that will really help you in terms of your capacity during the week and focusing your attention on other things. And we also have banners and headers and everything that in there, so you can use them for your email comms, but also if you have like a social media header that you want to change during the week, or use it as a way, if you're creating like a website landing page, you could use that as a template and starting point to designing that header for your landing page on your website. We also have all of our logos in there. So the main Arts Impact logos, particularly if you're creating your own social media assets completely from scratch, you have the logos there if you like to use them, along with figurative / impacts logo as well. We also have our campaign video linked in there. So currently the one from 2024 is linked in there. If you want to see what we've done previously, you can also use that as a way to share with some of your supporters in advance an idea of what the campaign's about, get them excited, and let them know that their new campaign video is coming. So that's due to launch about a week before the campaign, and we'll be sharing the link with all of you so you can use that as well to publicize your campaign.
I like last year's video. It features Bethany. Watch it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm the best actress, but I did try.
No, you did very well. And also, Vernon Ellis, who's our chair, he does a brilliant, well, I described him as the David Attenborough of the arts and culture sector. He just does this brilliant thing about why you should support arts and culture and, you know, what the impact is of the different art forms. So that, I thought that was really powerful messaging from both of you, actually. Sorry, I interrupted you. Was there something
No,
else?
honestly, thank you. That's mainly it, to be honest. But I would definitely, again, encourage you to have a look at those resources on the Trello board. If there is something you can't see there that you would really find useful, obviously you can send us an email and let us know. In addition to the Trello board that are particularly focused on marketing assets, there are additional resources available in the charity portal that can help you through just giving you some wider campaign info. So like information on payouts, information on what happens on stage 4 during the campaign week or stage 5 during the post-campaign period. All of those are accessible via the portal, so you can access those resources now if you need to.
Thank you very much. So if I was to summarise what the two of you said, one of them is make sure you have really clear messaging around your case for support across all your comms and plan it. Those would appear to be the sort of one-line summaries of your two presentations. I just wanted to show a couple of slides just before we take the questions, and I can see there's one in the chat and some building up in the Q&A box. So I hope you can all see this slide. Essentially, it is, hold on, just a sort of summary of how you make your case for support. And it really follows on very neatly from what Suzanne was saying. Why should a donor support you? What is your philanthropic cause? And how will you be using the money? So, for example, what are the benefits that you've got? Suzanne was talking about how the Sunderland Culture Campaign was all around access to free activities for children and young people in Sunderland. Very clear message, clear social impact, clear benefits. The donors know what their money is going to. And I guess also applicable to Sunderland Culture is it's the improvement of quality of life in a particular place, which is perhaps what appealed also to the football club. We need to have the cause front and centre. Suzanne was saying that people didn't necessarily know what Sunderland Culture was compared to the venues that they manage, but this is your opportunity to make that clear. And then you want your case for support consistent across your activity reports. Oops. Right, I'm trying to get onto my next slide and my computer is not playing. There we go. And then the other thing in terms of making your case for support, again, picks up very much on what Suzanne was saying. You use your senior volunteers. Why do they think a donor should support your organisation? Why do they support you? Why are they on the board? What are they passionate about? Can they use their skills, their networks? One of the things that Suzanne said that I thought was marvellous was, please give and please get 2 of your friends to do the same. So now, next time around, those 3 people can each get 2 of their friends. You kind of want to kind of, you know, a spiralling effect, if you will. So use their network to champion your cause and to use their social media to back up yours. Excellent. I think I'll stop presenting now. And let's have a look at the questions that have come. Sahil, are you question monitor?
Yeah. Got a question firstly from an anonymous attendee asking, thanks for sharing all of this today. Can you share top 3 ways of reaching specific audiences, arts and culture? I think that's still directed at you, Anna.
So what's the question? How to find?
Can you share top 3 ways of reaching this specific audience, arts and culture philanthropy?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think obviously email direct connections is one. The peer-to-peer ask is really important, and reciprocity, I would say. I do a kind of little riff every time I meet a group of arts organisations, and we can't really do it very easily on screen, but imagine we are. I ask people to put their hands up if they've ever given money to someone's sponsored walk, a PTA, the collection box outside Tesco's or whatever. If the four of us play this game, we're all going to put our hands up and say that we've done that, aren't we? And then I say, and how many of you have asked people to do that? So you've asked for a donation for your sponsored walk or for your PTA or for whatever. And pretty much everyone puts their hands up at that too. At which point I say, congratulations, first of all, you are all philanthropists. And secondly, you've just demonstrated the power of the reciprocal philanthropy. If I go and ask somebody to give money to a charity on whose board I sit, I can bet that that person's going to then ask me to go and do the same. And that happens whether you're putting 10 quid into a pot or whether you're a philanthropist at the top end. So the peer-to-peer ask, the reciprocity, and the direct mailing. I hope that's an answer to the question.
Someone else has asked, we have a lot of lapsed mailing list subscribers. What is a GDPR friendly way to get our current partners on the mailing list for Big Give, especially? Do we have to ask permission to add, or can we take it as informed consent that they want to hear about our campaign?
So it depends what you mean by the word lapsed. If
Yeah.
they're lapsed because they have actively opted out of communication, bad luck, you can't communicate with them. If they're lapsed because they've given you money in the past, or they've come to things in the past, or they're on your mailing list but they never actually bother opening your mailing list, they're fair game, because they are hanging out on your mailing list and they have a legitimate interest in hearing about what you're doing because they're on your mailing list.
Also,
Great.
just to add to this, whenever someone's making a donation, they'll have the option to opt in to receiving comms from you. So anyone in your donation support available in the portal, you'll see all of the people who have opted into receiving comms, and you can also add their emails to your mailing list. So that's definitely an action that I would encourage throughout the campaign as well.
There's a question in the chat about that. It says, can you confirm how you gain donor information to follow up? Which Bethany seems to have brilliantly answered. So essentially, when people give money to your campaign, there are 3 boxes, I think. Tick here to hear from the Big Give, second one down, tick here to hear from the arts organisation, and then there's a third one as well, which I think is to hear from us. And the percentage of people who tick those boxes goes down as you get down the boxes, so we don't particularly get connections with anybody.
And just to clarify, the charity, we actually asked the charity one first. So that's the primary first question we asked donors if they want to hear from the charity or add it to their
Thank you,
mailing
that's
list.
very nice of you, that's much better. And then the second part of the question in the chat says, can you confirm, am I right that £100 is the minimum donation? That's not right, is it? You could take £1.
Yeah, that's correct.
Take a bit
£1 is the
longer.
minimum.
Take a bit longer to get £1, but
Yeah.
no, I think you take any donation.
Yeah. Have a question from Fran. This is so helpful. When do you start sending out messages ahead of the week? So maybe Suzanne and Bethany can jump on that. And
Bethany, do you want to go first? When are you sending out the Big Give ones?
So we start a lot of our kind of public marketing and comms about 4 weeks to go into the campaign. So that's when we'll start kind of teasing it on social media, saying this campaign's coming up, save the date, get ready. And then most of our campaign activities obviously focus around the campaign week. So the week before we launch our video that I mentioned, but we'll also do email to all of our donors subscribe to Big Gives mailing list, let them know that the campaign's coming, link to the video and get them excited. And then the majority of our kind of PR and social media activities focus during the campaign week itself. So obviously the launch day, we'll have a press release, we'll be posting on social media, we'll be resharing all of your content, and then we'll be active throughout the week of the campaign as well. What I would say, just kind of final point on this, I know a lot of charities with that kind of 4 weeks to go, if they have like a monthly newsletter, they'll first kind of tease it in there, let people know the campaign's coming up, and then obviously the activity will start to increase as the campaign week gets closer. So something to think about Suzanne, you probably have some good points on this.
Yeah, I was just looking at what we did last year, and we did some trailing in our kind of like what's on emails that go out regularly, and sort of like a week or two before, because it has to happen in the week. We thought people are not going to remember, or they'll have the leaflet, maybe they'll remember to scan the QR code on that day. Probably they won't. So we actually really just targeted. We were ready the sort of day before, and it was like as the campaign launched, that's when we really kind of activated with those direct you can give now messages. But we had trailed it in various what's on like the week before. But in terms of like the messaging that went out to around more the advocacy and the stakeholders, where I'd been and presented at like Sunderland Business Partnership meeting that might have been early May, we then asked them if they'd send a follow-up email to their mailing list as it opened. So that kind of dual pronged of like, we've raised awareness before, but we needed to nudge them when the ability to give, when people could actually make a donation. And so that's the approach we took.
Super, thank you. Well, there's a very long question here from an anonymous attendee. Looks like it's got a bit.
Yeah, I'm just going to firstly just ask the first part because I think it'll help save the rest of it. Is what do you think the efficacy of contactless donations and logistics aside? Well, the short answer to that is that we can't support contactless donations. All donations have to be made via the Big Give website, via your campaign page on the Big Give website, and we ask for donors to input their card details. So yeah, if you can't have contactless stations and we can't match them, what we have had for other campaigns where charities have sometimes set up donation stations, so like iPads or devices where their supporters, if they're local to them, can come in and make a donation, and especially if they're like elderly or not sort of technologically savvy, that people working for the charity can help them make that donation and navigate the website. But yeah, contactless is not integrated with the website, unfortunately.
If your question is more generally, is it a good thing to have a contactless venue? Yeah, absolutely. Just put one there. Cost you almost nothing. Those sum up machines cost what, 30 quid? I mean, they're cheap. So the ROI of that investment will be very quick. So I would do that, because often people don't, they don't really notice. That would be my view. Suzanne, have you got them in your venues?
We do. I kind of hid them away during the Big Give week last year and put like an A3 poster up instead, and our front of house staff were all briefed on. But I'm not sure. I don't think that resulted in much transactions. So I might just keep the contactless donations where they are, because I think there's something about maintaining our in-venue donations during the week for those speculative giving.
Well, it'd be quite interesting if you do it differently this year. It'd be quite interesting to see if it makes a difference. That would fall into the kind of statisticians, concept of too many factors to isolate that one. But anyway, that's good. I hope that answers the question to that.
Yeah. This question here from Suzanne from Andrea. I'm interested in that you mentioned that you contacted your suppliers. Did you know whether that achieved much of a response? If so, what kind of response?
I was really pleasantly surprised. So I guess I was thinking we spend quite a lot of money with people in order to deliver our program, and also there's a number of like companies that we buy services from our designer or our printers, and we have a HR consultant on a retainer, and we have some press support and things like that. So we thought, who is it that we purchase from, and who may be philanthropic in their giving or may want to make a corporate donation, and I identified who was the best person that held that like relationship. And so our head of marketing or our finance director, they made those approaches to, dear Handels Bank and bank manager. And so we did get a fairly good response, I'd say. So yeah, we will be going back to them again.
Falls into the category of when you're doing a fundraising campaign, literally you should ask everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of tried and tested things that, the little festival that I run, this is not to do with a big gift, but, we pay whatever it is, 1,200 quid to our accountants each year for the independent examination and for a software license, and then they advertise in our programme, so it reduces the cost effectively to us of the accounting services, and that's a kind of, fairly well-established route, to get folk to advertise, and this is, I suppose, a sort of philanthropic extension of that.
And we got a mix of people making like a corporate donation, but also the individuals made personal donations as well. So there was the balance.
I'm very keen on that generally, because I think that, people give money to people. If you've got a corporate supporter, well, the senior staff in that corporate supporter are probably the ones who've got the higher salaries, who could afford to make a donation in an individual capacity. And actually, I think generally employers should be encouraging their employees to give as they earn, whatever. And that's perhaps the topic of another whole seminar.
I got a question here about logistics. It's directed to me. You mentioned that you can't count cash as match, but on Wednesday, I think you said you can collect cash and have third party or member of staff donate the funds. Is that right? Yes. So obviously, if you collect cash, we can't match that as such. But then if you have a third party, another organization, or a member of staff using a personal card to then donate those cash proceeds on your Big Give campaign page, that can then be matched. Obviously, our advice is speak to an accountant or speak to your accounts team about this. Obviously, you want to show that correctly in your books, etc.
Yeah, now I feel bad.
And Julia has asked, what were the terms around someone giving £500 or more? Yeah, so donors that are giving £500 or more can donate via our usual methods, which is Google, Apple Pay, credit and debit card. But we also have a backs donation option, which they can choose to use. We will send an email next week about how the backs donation option works. So any donors that want to give £500 or more and want to use backs can use that facility to make their donation during the campaign week. But like I said, we will send an email about how that all works next week. I don't see any further questions in the chat or in the Q&A. Oh, there is one. Yeah. How much is too much comms? We were thinking of stakeholders an awareness email a couple of weeks before, one on launch day and one last chance to donate on the Thursday of the campaign. Conscious, we don't want to annoy people, but that it might not be on the top of the list. So how much is too much? What is the right amount of comms? Bethany, do you want to jump in on this?
Yeah, I think what you've suggested sounds good. We personally do one obviously the week before when the campaign launches, and then kind of a 1 or 2 days to go email. So they are receiving kind of 3 within a few weeks of each other. Ultimately, you know your audience best, so it might be worth checking if you've done any kind of campaigns like this before where you've sent multiple emails within a few weeks. You could check your like unsubscribe rates to see if it was really huge. But most of the time, I would say if it's kind of once in a while where you're doing campaigns like this, a couple of emails like that, it would actually be fine.
I would add, if you're sending multiple emails during the campaign week about donations, probably to check if any of those people on your mailing list have donated, and maybe take them off subsequent emails, or send them a separate email saying thank you for your donation. Maybe can you share our campaign with your friends, family, network, etc.
The only other thing I'd add to that is I noticed recently I'm organising a couple of fundraising events in the next few weeks, and we sent out a MailChimp message, and some people replied, but not everybody. So I sent a follow-up direct email to a whole load of people, and loads of people replied. And I just thought it was quite interesting that the sort of email via MailChimp didn't elicit a response, but a direct message did. So I think it's worth mentioning that because you want people to feel like you're talking to them directly and not impersonally through some kind of computer system.
Yeah, MailChimp. So just quickly on that, MailChimp can sometimes end up in people's spam folders with the way that some sort of email filtering system works. So that's something to be aware of. Sorry, Suzanne, you were going to say?
I think we did 3. I think we did a pre, it's launched, a final push, and then thank you as a 4th. But we did higher frequency updates on Facebook and Instagram and on LinkedIn. So there was that kind of, there was a bit more reach and traction there, but we felt that more than 3 messages in a short period of time was kind of, yeah, erring into the world of spam.
It's interesting also because the pattern of comms that you've just described, and indeed that was in the question, is really reflected in the way the donations come in. So there's a sort of big spike on the first day, and then it sort of drops off a bit, and then there's a big spike at the end, which caused me to have quite a few conniptions because I thought that we weren't going to hit the target, but actually the comms completely. So maybe if half the people did middle and end, and half the people had been beginning and end, we'd have a flatter overall donations. Anyway. Thanks.
One thing can I just say, one thing we did do is because we got a couple of pledges at the we knew some people were going to give, so we had them lined up, like as the portal went live, they were sat there ready to make their donations, and I think that sense of, within 2 hours we'd actually made quite a, we'd seen progress, so that as people went in from their emails, they could see, oh, it's moved, it's, there's progress. And I think if you're able to have, whether it's some board donations and that kind of steering them, like, I need you to make your donation as early in this campaign as you can, it felt really important to kind of see that traction for us, that it wasn't just people weren't waiting.
And sorry, just before we run out of time, Suzanne, there is actually a final question from here for you from Fran. They're asking, how did you send out emails to customers? We use Spectrix and Dot Digital, so not sure how to remove donors from a reminder email.
Maybe we can exchange emails and we can deal with that off this, because I don't know. I've got a colleague to do it.
Great, yeah. I think that's welcome. Yeah, if Fran would like to Suzanne, are you happy for Fran to connect with you? And yeah, you can have a chat about that. But I want to I think we've just run out of time, but I want to thank firstly Suzanne for joining us today and sharing all of her valuable insights from their successful campaign last year, which is loads of great advice there for charity to take away. Thanks to Anna and Bethany for joining us today as well, for sharing their insights, and thank you all for being joining us and raising so many great questions. Don't forget, we have the Ask Us Anything webinar on Monday at 12 p.m. Come with all of your questions ready. Anything and any you want to ask us, please just fire away. No question is too silly to ask. And yeah, make the best use of that time. But I hope everyone has a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you, Sahil. Good luck, everybody.